Hello and welcome to Chromatic Chimera, the stream where everything's made up and the XP doesn't matter, and especially not tonight because we're not playing a game, we're interviewing. And I would like to thank Leona Maple for being here with me tonight to talk about all of her awesome projects. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll kind of get things started off with kind of an icebreaker ish
Mhm.
question. And I'm wondering, how did you get into all this nerdy stuff? What was your gateway?
Um, ooh, kind of a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
I was always kind of really interested in nerdy and geeky things, but I was never really given the opportunity to like explore it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in high school, if we're gonna talk about like origin stories,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Give me your origin story.
give- yeah, way back in high school, I think BBC Sherlock was the first big fandom that I was a part of.
Oh.
Yeah, that was kind of where I started. And then had this friend who was like, "Yeah, there's a comic book store down there," and I'm like, "What? Like, there's a comic book store? Like, take me there." And then between that and when Agents of Shield first came out, the Marvel fandom, so
Mm-hmm.
those were kind of my first couple of big fandoms and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I got involved in all this nerdy business, and then started hearing about conventions and stuff like that. So I've been to Vancouver Fan Expo once, twice, something like that. And definitely need to do more conventions because they're so much fun. Um, yeah, besides that, I got into tabletop RPGs kind of sideways.
Okay.
I was chatting with Captain J Cross, who is the or Capjack, if you will, who is the one of the mods at Welcome to the Party.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, we were messaging each other on Twitter, and they were like, "Yeah, I stream D&D," and I was like, "Oh my god, I've heard of this thing called Dungeons and Dragons, but like I've never had an opportunity to know what it is, how it works, like
Mm-hmm.
how to play it. Like I'm just so curious about it." And they're like, "Well, join the Discord." And I was like, "Nope." I was like, nope, no way. Like, I am a total newbie. I'm gonna make a fool of myself. These people are gonna judge the heck out of me.
Oh.
No. I was so nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, no, it's like literally a space for new people. Like you are gonna have such a good time there. And at first I was like, and then I started watching like the streams that Welcome to the Party did, and
Yeah.
they messaged me and they'd be like, "I'm on this stream now. Like, come watch some D&D." Um, and just kind of was like, okay, I want to be on the other side. I want to do this. Like I want to be on a stream. I want to play D&D. I want to know how all of this works, and I want to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of dove into the Welcome to the Party Discord, and I've been living there ever since.
So did you start on 5e then?
Yes, I
Nice.
started with 5e.
I
Yeah,
feel like 5e is actually like a really good edition to start on. I don't know if
yeah.
you're familiar with any of the older editions, but they're kind
I've
of
heard a bit.
nightmares.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about them. I think 5e is just really it's still overwhelming for me as someone
Yeah.
who is still quite new to D&D, and I'm still
Mm-hmm.
just like, what do you mean I have to do math? Like this is a lot of work. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun, and I think it's not too terrible, and I think the fact that there are so many like supplements and like there's all these different things that are just like geared towards 5e, and I think that
Yeah.
just kind of speaks to how popular it is, and like how much more friendly it is to everyone, that we can kind of take it and make it our own.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And how long have you been part of Welcome to the Party then?
I want to say it was like fall 2018 when I joined. So yeah, I've been there about what, like a year, a year,
Year and
a year,
change?
year and change, something like that. Yeah. And then it was like January 2019 when I did my first campaign. So yeah.
Awesome. That's really cool. I didn't even get into like GMing until probably 2 or 3 years into D&Ding.
Yeah, I mean, I've only GM'd for one shots and stuff,
Yeah.
but it was funny. I didn't actually end up doing D&D as my first campaign. It actually
Mm.
ended up being Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh,
So
really?
yes,
I
that
haven't
was
had the
really
chance to play that.
It
yet.
is really, really cool. It was
Yeah.
also incredibly ambitious because the latest edition of Vampire, I was so lost. I was unbelievably lost. I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I just want to be a vampire. And like, we were doing this outrageous thing called the Crusade of Thorns, and we had three different factions. We had all the different factions of vampires, and
Okay.
each of our games would influence the other games. So we had STs for each of the games, and then we had a floating ST who was there to kind of hold us all together. It was pretty wild, and absolutely incredible. And I had such a blast. So Vampire holds a very special place in my heart, just because it's so like I've seen D&D have these deep, intense emotional moments. I
Yeah.
haven't experienced that yet,
Hmm.
but with Vampire, there were moments where like I literally had people messaging me on Discord in the middle of stream going, "Girl, are you okay? Like that was intense. Like holy shit, are you acting or are you actually crying?" And I was like, "No, no, I'm acting." But it was literally like it gets so like it's really visceral and very intense, and there's just something about it that I love. So yeah, it can get quite it can get quite gory. So one of our
Hmm.
factions was a little bit more on the gore side, but you can also play it the political way, the action way. There's like so many things you can do with it. So yeah, I keep coming back to Vampire.
That's awesome. So you play Vampire. Would you say you play that the most out of all your TTRPGs?
I feel like I've played everything equally, right? Like
Okay.
I played Vampire. I've been in a couple of one shots like Honey Heist.
Oh.
I've played the Fantasy Age system for a little bit as well,
Hmm.
and now I'm doing a couple of D&D things. So I feel like I've despite that I've got the most experience at D&D probably.
Yeah.
But there may be more Vampire in the future that I can't talk about yet. So
Oh. Okay. I won't tell anybody. Don't worry. I'll just tell all the people watching.
Right? I mean, we put a teaser out, so
Mhm. So you got involved with Welcome to the Party, which is
Mhm.
awesome. They're a great group of people, and I love everything about them, honestly. So how did you kind of you dipped your toes in, you started to get involved. How did that go from just kind of starting to get involved to being a mod, running games, becoming like their I don't know, I don't what do you call it,
the
their consultant for.
I yeah, I mean, I'm like I'm one of the people who kind of I guess kind of helps with community building, I
Yeah,
suppose. I'm
that's the word.
ultimately, yeah, I'm a mod on the Discord, and that's really what it is.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was it was actually around the time that I signed up for the vampire game, now that I think of it.
Hmm.
And I kind of had this thought running through my brain of, okay, but I'm in the geekiest fandom. Like the nerdiest of the nerds, I feel like play D&D. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's this, do you know what I mean? Like, and it's this stereotype of like, super nerdy people.
Yep.
But at the same time, I was like, okay, but where are all the people of color? Like I was certain of the fact that there had to be like computer nerds that were South Asian, like if we're gonna go into that stereotype that were playing D&D, and I couldn't see a single one, right?
Hmm.
And like I just couldn't see any people of color, and I was like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
Right? Like I knew I was like asking in the Discord, I was like, does anyone know of a community where there's people of color, or like South Asian people? Like where can I connect with people that are like me, that are also playing D&D or also playing Vampire? Like where do I find these people? And no one knew. No, literally no one knew, because there was nothing at the time.
Wow.
um yeah, it just kind of happened, that I kind of started, making noise on Twitter around the same time that POCs and TTRPGs started up.
Yeah.
So we kind of started doing stuff at the exact same time and making a whole bunch of noise, which was just beautiful timing, I think. So that's only when that kind of started happening, just coincidentally. But yeah, I remember kind of just being like, I'm in a game where there's two different channels involved and three factions of vampires, and I'm the only person who is a visible person of color, and there was only one visible person of color as one of the STs, and I was like, how? I was just so confused. And so I forget what I wrote in the Discord, but I wrote up something, and I honestly forget what I wrote, but I was just like, hey guys, like I've noticed this and I want to try and do something to fix this. And I've actually experienced in person people of color only spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in queer people of color only spaces too, and it was so interesting to me how, like, when I was there, my shoulders would drop and I'd be so relaxed, and we would be able to talk about things that we've experienced and laugh, and like we didn't have to worry about hurting anyone's feelings because we all understood each other and there were no like white feelings that were going to get hurt in the middle of all that. So we could literally vent and complain and just have a space that was our own,
Mm-hmm.
and build such valuable strong connections in that space and build some wonderful friendships, and like suddenly we had people to hang out with at different events and stuff. So I it was really special, and I said, well, I propose doing something like this. And the I was so nervous about it. I'd actually talked it over with Cap Jack, and I said, oh my god, I don't know if this is going to be okay, but they were like, no, do it. um so I did. I put it in the Discord. The entire community was just like, yes, we love this. And Throck, being the amazing co-founder that he is, was just like, join the mod team, make it happen, do what you got to do, just join us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I ended up on the mod team, and that's when I started building a person of color only space, right? Like a BIM, I started building a BIMPOC space,
Mm-hmm.
so that so that we as a group of people can sit together and just kind of talk and vent, and like we talk about meeting up with each other in there. We talk about things that are really infuriating. We support each other, all kinds of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really supportive space, and at the same time, I really wanted to kind of like to showcase that there is this community that exists, right? Like
Yeah.
I was finding all of these people and I was like, these people need to be showcased. Like we need to show that we exist, we're here. And so with a fair bit of help, I launched Vibrant Visible Victorious. I founded that show. And so that is a all BIMPOC all the time, BIMPOC only, one shots. We do one shots. Sometimes the one shots will come back for like a part two, which is
Okay.
always great because it's just like these people have had so much fun together that they're gonna come back again to do it again. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yay, like this is, that's kind of magical to me. So yeah, I launched that show,
Do
and
you run all those, or is it like you rotate who runs the games?
so it's totally by sign up. So
Okay.
any of the BIMPOC DMs that want to sign up, it's a completely kind of open system where it's just like, hey, if you're someone that wants to GM, sign up for a week, right? Let us know what you're running, and then players can sign up accordingly.
Okay.
So I've only GM'd like once or twice on there, just
Wow.
because I don't. I live with my family. I'm still very much like a closet geeky gamer and a closet queer and all of these other things, and like what I mean, like I
Yeah.
live my life with a lot of other stuff around me, so I wasn't able to commit constantly to being like
Mm-hmm.
on a stream every week. The fact that I do have a Friday night D&D game every Friday night is a little bit, my family is sometimes like, okay, what, like they don't fully get it. So it was just not something where I could take on running it. I handled
Yeah.
the stream production side of it, like that was okay. um but I couldn't really commit to GMing constantly, and I was not confident enough because I was not GMing at all when I started this.
Yeah.
So it's very like open in terms of like who can sign up for it. So long as you're BIMPOC, just sign up, take a slot, and we kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, and it's been cool.
That's awesome. So you started this whole little group of just
Hmm.
BIMPOC people to play different games together, and it sounds like it's going extremely well. Like, what kind of games does your group play on Triple V
Yeah,
or three
we
V? What
3V,
three
it's
V?
got a bunch of names. Some people
Okay.
call it V3, some people call it 3V. I call it 3V, but any name works.
Okay.
Yeah. We've reached about 100 people within the BIMPOC community itself.
Wow.
So I'm really proud of that we've been that that people of color felt comfortable and then brought their friends, and we're just like,
Yeah.
hey, this is a great space that you need to join. And in terms of games that we've played everything. I think we've played I don't remember if we've played Lasers and Feelings. We've definitely had Honey Heist happen. We've had lots of D&D. We've had the Quiet Year. I think that's what it's called.
Mm.
Um, I know that we ran a game of that. It's literally been like all kinds of stuff. Whatever you want to run, you get to run. For the Queen, I believe we also had as
Oh,
well. Yeah, that's a really fun one. So I mean, we've had like the one page one shots, and we've had more like the systems and stuff like that. So we've
yeah.
had a really cool mix, right? Like every week that you tune in, it's something a little bit different, and it's a whole new premise and a whole new story. So yeah.
So, out of curiosity,
Hmm.
is this something that you think is or will ever be big enough to warrant its own stream of its own, like its own channel?
I hope so.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things where it's such a deep ingrained part of Welcome to the Party's mission,
yeah,
and it's something that it's something that like 3B is always going to be attached to this channel. Like it's
yeah.
just kind of these two things kind of live together.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we would ever kind of pull a critical role and break away and become our own entity. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
No, no, I get that.
But at the same time, Welcome to the Party has also launched New to the Party, which is a sister channel that focuses on education and all that kind of other really good stuff. They're very very similar channels, but they have slightly different focuses.
Yeah.
Um, and on that channel, we have a game called Lingua Meja, which is just all for people that are ESL, right? Like English is not their first language.
Mm-hmm.
They speak all kinds of languages. They're from around the world, and here they are playing, a D&D. I think it's the Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign. So there's things like that happening. So there's we've got people of color involved in all of our different shows, and
Yeah.
we have shows like that are tailored towards audiences that don't normally get a chance to be seen. So I think it absolutely could become a thing. I think as more and more people kind of tune into the fact that hey, we should support people of color and
Yeah.
BIPOC folks. I think hope that would be my hope and dream. Like if that ever happened, I would be so blown away and amazed and happy to know that there's that many people in the community and that they all want to play together, and that we could have a whole
Mm-hmm.
people of color at the party channel or something like that. Yeah.
So, and that brings up like a very important point. I think that not a lot of people, or not everyone understands the importance of having those spaces
Mm-hmm.
specifically for you and people like you.
Yeah.
um and some people begrudge it because they can't be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important though. Like I've been in femme only spaces. I've seen lots of queer only spaces that are extremely important because you all share, the very similar
Yeah.
experiences. Um, and what is having that space that's just for you and people like you mean to you?
It means a lot. It's been a huge support. Just to have a space where it's like there's people making cultural references that I understand. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? Like it's just this great sense of belonging, and it really inspires me when I see like someone just show up in that space and there's already someone there of the same culture and they just go, "Oh my god, hi," right? And they become best friends. And it's just so magical to see like people become excited and
Mm-hmm.
realize that it's okay to have things that are not so white centric, and it's okay for them to just be people of color. And it's been hugely supportive on days when we're having rough days and when we need support from us as a community.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen us build really great connections as a community as well, like with each other. And I think it's actually helped like I see more of us people of color getting involved in like the general Discord, like just outside of that channel.
Mm-hmm.
People are taking a step up, they're stepping up, they're becoming a part of the leadership, they're taking initiative. So I think it just really helps to empower folks. I hear the cat.
I'm sorry, they're fighting.
No.
Get
Oh
out of
no, that's
here.
so cute. I saw him or her hop up earlier and I was like,
um
oh my gosh.
well, there's three of them, and two of them are the small one is picking a fight with the big one, and the big one's not having it.
That is so cute. I love cats.
So I'm sorry for the constant
No,
meowing in
it's
the
all
background.
good. It's all good, but it was just like I was just like, oh my gosh, there's cats. Yeah, no, I remember having this really good conversation with someone who was like,
Okay.
I was really mad at first that I wasn't allowed to be in this space, that you made a space that excluded me.
Mm-hmm.
Um and he was like, I was kind of mad about it at first. Like why can't I be invited? Why can't I be allowed there? Um he goes, but then I realized the reason why, and that reason being that, we need that space where we can just kind of relax and just kind of talk to each other about things um that folks may not, white folks may have a harder time kind of relating to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's not, for example, like, I when I would go to school, I'd be self-conscious if I had, South Asian food with me because it would have a smell and people would notice that. Um, Things like that. I just recently tweeted about yoga. That was not, that people were not happy about that. That I tweeted about yoga and how frustrated I get with the fact, to be clear, I have no problem sharing yoga with the world because it's great. I recognize that it's so helpful for a ton of people. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I get very frustrated when white women seem to use yoga for like their little like photo shoots, and they're all about like this yogi lifestyle, but there's no real respect or reverence there for where this came from.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of becomes like a part of white culture when it's really not. Um, and some people were like, well, what do you mean? Does that mean I can't do yoga? And I'm like, no, people, that's not what I'm trying to say. Whereas, when I have that conversation within the BIMPOC space, they
Yeah.
get it,
Yeah,
and
just like
we,
respect where it comes from. That's
yeah,
all. That's all you're
exactly.
asking.
That's all I'm asking for. But some people are like, well, they don't quite get it. They think I'm telling them not to do the thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is hard. And sometimes I have the energy to have that conversation. Sometimes I just need that BIMPOC space to just be like, I'm really frustrated about this. Like, I just need to get this off my chest. And
Mm-hmm.
and they're there to support me, and we support each other, which is super awesome.
So, besides just doing this community building and BIMPOC space for Welcome to the Party, you're also a consultant, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
For sure. So, I am an intersectionality consultant. You
Mm-hmm.
might also know me as like a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant because some people aren't so familiar with the term intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but really, what I do is I can basically consult with you on any type of project. Like if you're working on a TTRPG, if you're working on a setting, maybe you're working on. I've had folks ask me to check out their artwork or even their community policies. So I've kind of helped a bunch of people with a bunch of different things, and I just help you make it more inclusive, more welcoming to to everyone, and just more intersectional, right? Like it's just intersectionality is all about recognizing that um, you can't have equal rights for everyone in the exact same way,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right? Some people are going to get equal rights in one way, and some people, because of where their intersections are, for example, I am a woman of color. So I am a woman, so I don't have as much privilege as a man. Two, I am a woman of color. So I have a racial kind of disadvantage there where people have certain assumptions of me because of my race.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for me to have equality, it's not as simple as breaking the glass ceiling in the workplace. It's also about, well, how do we address the fact that, I'm being perceived a certain way by my coworkers, as foreign or as exotic or as someone who's coming here to take your jobs, things like that. And so how do we address, both of these things because they definitely work together. And how do we kind of give this person an opportunity to be uplifted
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that everyone else deserves to be. So that's really what intersectionality is. And so I tend to look at people's work, whatever it may be, and I kind of say, hey, like these are things that you could be doing different, or if you have an equity and diversity policy, this is what I really expect from you if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do that. Like, like you need to say what you're doing, how you're doing, right? What is your commitment, things like that. So I've been very, very blessed so far, that I've been able to work with a bunch of really cool people, and just support them, right? Sometimes you just need someone a space where it's okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
So I've also just been that person who just like sits there and listens while this person talks through their stuff. And I answer whatever questions they have because I don't think there's ever a bad answer. I remember being a terrible intersectional feminist. So we all start somewhere,
Yeah.
and I'm just happy to support people in whatever form they need. So it's been really, really gratifying work, and I'm glad that I'm able to do
Well, can you tell me what are some like kinds of projects you worked on? I won't ask you to tell me
it.
exactly what you've worked on. I'm sure there's NDAs in progress.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, things like community policy, for example, I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely advised on that. Or if someone's been like, oh, we commit to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Okay, cool. What does that mean? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what is your stance here? Like what are you doing to achieve that? What are the metrics here? What are you committing to, right? I know someone who committed to having like, I think it was a minimum of two people, or it was half of a cast or whatever of that they needed to be BIMPOC. Like
Mm-hmm.
just they just needed to be BIMPOC. Like that's it was, it's 2019 and it's time for this to happen kind of a thing. So I've seen people do commitments like that, and I'm able to kind of share those anecdotes with people who are asking me questions, and I'm able to be like, this
Mm-hmm.
is something that you could do. Let's see, I've also done a sensitivity reading on artwork. Someone was doing artwork that was based upon South Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, and so I was able to kind of look at that and go, okay, this looks really cool, this looks really great. This is, if you're wanting to kind of have a certain pattern in the fabric, here's an example of what that pattern might look like. This is
Mm-hmm.
historically accurate, right? And just kind of making sure that nothing was jumping out at me is like, ooh, maybe not. Yeah, no
Don't
cringe
want that.
moments. Right? Like when Vampire the Masquerade, for example, fucks up horrifically with their setting books. You don't want to be that person. So
No.
I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen. So hi White Wolf, hire me. I'm here. That's what I'm here for. It's literally I'm a support in
Mm-hmm.
so many different capacities. I think that's also partially because I'm a communications major by day, so that was what I graduated with a degree in very recently.
Me
So I'm
too.
also able, yay! So I'm also able to kind of bring that element into things,
Yeah.
right? So I just, whatever I can do to help is really kind of, it's kind of nebulous because I'm still figuring it out myself,
Oh
but
yeah.
that's really what it is. It's whatever I can do to help.
Do you mind if I ask a question about like what are some guidelines you would suggest for streams looking to be more inclusive, or do I
Yeah.
need to pay you for that?
No, that's okay. I mean,
Okay.
I definitely tweet about stuff like this
Mm-hmm.
from time to time, so you can occasionally pick up free tips and tricks along the way on Twitter.
Okay.
Um,
Because
uh,
you had mentioned that a stream was one of their commitments was to have their half of the cast be POC or
yeah,
BIMPOC, and does that ever kind of strike you as um, forced or disingenuous that they're like, okay, half of this cast has to be BIMPOC?
I can definitely see why people would think that it's forced or disingenuous because
Mm-hmm.
it seems like those people didn't get there of their own merit. But what it really is you people of color will not get a space
Mm-hmm.
unless you make a space and you leave the gap for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about making a space for them, right? I made a space for people of color to just kind of be themselves, and I made a space for people of color to run their own games and to
Mm-hmm.
play their own games. um and it's only when you kind of have a built-in thing where it's like, okay, we want to make sure that we have at least two people of color in all of our shows,
Yeah.
or something of the sort. That's when you really made a commitment, and that's successful when you do the work and you are specifically looking out for people of color within your communities. You are working towards really protecting them, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
within our community, like casual racism is not a thing that we welcome, right? And when
Mm-hmm.
someone says something that's busted, we're like, hey, that's not right, and here's why. And
Mm-hmm.
we take on an educational approach as mods to teaching people why it's not okay. um which, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Sometimes people leave the Discord, and that's okay, it's not a space for them. But yeah, it's things like that, right? Like committing to having a show, or committing to having, a certain number of seats
Mm-hmm.
for marginalized communities, right? But being specific about which marginalized communities those seats are reserved for, right? It's also, um just completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's about, yeah, it's not disingenuous. It's the recognizing the fact that these people have earned the right to be there,
Okay.
and it's about uplifting them, right? It's about giving
Mm-hmm.
them an opportunity that they would not get otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key point there. Is that if we were to go with the system as it stands, these people may not get a chance to be on stream. They may not feel welcome.
Mm-hmm.
They may feel like, oh, like I said, I was like, no, I don't want to play. Like, I don't know, right? When I first did my Vampire the Masquerade campaign, the first question out of my mouth was, is it okay for me to play a South Asian woman? Of course it is, but I felt like I had to ask because
Yeah.
we don't know if it's okay for us to be ourselves. And this is one of those things where it's like, hey, you are allowed to be yourself here.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to bring yourself, and we want to give you a space. We want to uplift you and give you an opportunity that you otherwise wouldn't have. So that's what it's all about.
Oh, and thank you for kind of explaining that, because that's something I'm always very very worried about, is making
Mhm.
someone feel like they're the token POC. We're just doing this for, minority points or inclusivity points or whatever. So
I
it's
mean,
always something
yeah,
that I'm very cautious about and careful about, because
yeah.
I don't want
There's
anyone to feel like that ever.
Yeah, no, there's definitely sometimes a fine line there.
Mm-hmm.
I think times when I've seen tokenism is when is things like just having just that one person of color, or
Mm-hmm.
expecting that one person of color to be a monolithic example of all people of color, right? Or expecting them to do a lot of emotional labor for you and
Yeah.
not really like doing the research yourself and things like that. And that kind of falls more closely into like tokenism for me. Whereas I find that streams that have more than one person of color, typically that's because that community has put in the effort to ensure that their space is welcoming, to ensure that they are looking out for these people and protecting them, and really just giving them an opportunity, right? So
Is there any advice that you would have for people who are sorry, I'm dying, it's okay. Is there any advice that you would have for people who are looking to make sure that their space is that welcoming community and feels welcoming to marginalized communities, especially POC?
um it's it's a little bit like it depends on the community, right?
Okay.
Everyone
Mm-hmm.
runs their communities a little bit differently. Everyone's admin team is a little bit different. I think things that you can do to empower BIMPOC includes, bringing on people of color as admin, right? Because they're going to be able to look out for their community's interests better
Mm-hmm.
than someone who is white. So that's something that you should definitely, consider doing. The same thing goes for trans folks, queer folks, disabled folks. When you bring in someone from that community, they're going to be able to advocate for that. And the other biggest thing that you can do is listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is first and foremost the biggest thing is to do, is to listen, and to always be aware that these people might come out with an opinion that you're not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
um and you just kind of have to sit there in your discomfort, and you just kind of have to listen and understand where they're coming from, because this is someone who's taking the time, and the energy to educate you, um and know that it's not that we don't, love and appreciate the person who is doing all this effort, but you are going to mess up and you are going to make mistakes, and we will hold you accountable, and that's just part of the learning process, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, in that sense, and just being able to work through it, and just, okay, I messed up, but we can do better, and we're going to keep doing better, and you just kind of keep going with it. Those are kind of the first foundational steps. um you know to kind of starting that community building, and then kind
Mm-hmm.
of going from there. Maybe you build policies, maybe you know, create a BIMPOC only space, and you have someone who is going to moderate that and is, you know, really invested in that community. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do. I think, you know, having that commitment to having people of color on screen is something that is really, really cool and special. So there's a whole bunch of options. And yeah, I'm happy to help answer that question a little more specifically, like depending on what that community is like and what
Yeah.
their focus is. But those are some of like the general things that you can kind of start with.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I very much
Absolutely.
appreciate you putting in the effort to talk about this, especially here on the show, um,
Yeah.
and getting to share that with other people. And so you said that you were a communications major and graduated with a communications degree.
Yeah.
Are you out in the working world now? You said that was pretty recent.
Yeah, it was pretty recent. So I basically, I think it qualifies as graduated as of December.
Okay.
It was kind of weird because I was waiting on confirmation that they accepted my minor, and
um,
that only got to me in January. So I'm not quite sure what my final paper is going to say at the end in terms of graduation date. It was
okay.
weird. It was weird. It was a whole weird thing. I'm an exception to what general university looks like. um,
That just sounds
but
like a headache.
it was a lot of emails, is what it was, but it's fine. So yeah, I'm done with university, and I'm done with school. I have a BA in communication, and I did a minor in publishing as well. And so I'm out looking for work. I haven't found work yet, but here's, you know, fingers crossed that I will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same time, I kind of decided to be ambitious and launch my own business. So, you know, I'm consulting with folks, and that's just been so incredibly helpful for me, and it's been such satisfying work. So I've been looking into sole proprietorship and starting that so that I can literally legally make this a business. So it's kind of like whichever one decides to work out first, whether it's a job or the business, and I'll take it and run with it.
How do you think that your communications major and your communications degree have helped you get to where you are in the community and with your consulting and everything?
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest things is that I had the opportunities in academia to study feminism and
Mm-hmm.
intersectionality and race relations. I had courses like race in the media and, you know, these really like feminist communications courses. So I was really given like all of these amazing texts, and I was able to read people like Kimberly Crenshaw and Bell Hooks and all of these amazing authors, Ian Jensen,
Mm-hmm.
who have written about this. And those things that I have read have really informed how I do my work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how I consult with folks, right? Like I think about the things that I've had the opportunity to learn. So in that sense, you know, I just had the opportunity throughout my degree to really kind of learn about this thing that's super, super interested me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as well as communications, they just somehow seem to kind of mesh together, right? Like we talk about media and media representation. Well, what does that look like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what is a good representation of race in the media? What isn't, right? Like when we see those sitcom shows and they have like the comedy South Asian person, like Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory, and you have Raj, and he's like, you know, kind of got all these stereotypes about him.
Yeah.
Maybe not so great, but there's
Ooh.
other, you know, there's other examples that are doing a much better job. So um it was still very relevant to my degree.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it a lot easier for me to explain concepts to people that are much harder for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently attempting to put about a semester's worth of learning into a 2-hour workshop, that I can teach in person, and then eventually maybe I'll do online webinar versions of it. But you know, condensing down all this information into ways that's accessible,
Yeah.
and also just being able to kind of advise on communications elements too, right? Like I know a fair bit about websites and social media and all of this
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. And so much of us talking about, you know, equality and all that kind of stuff, those conversations are happening online, right? So it's how do you engage online with those conversations respectfully? What do you do when you mess up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I've written about that, and it's like things like, well, first of all, stop, listen, just listen for a long time, recognize that people are going to be angry at you. Like, second of all, delete the offending tweet. Third, apologize, and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm very much like condensing all of this, but it's
Yeah.
it's something to that effect. Um, so it all kind of just seemed to tie together. Yeah, and so I kind of know how to market myself a little bit, but I'm
Hmm.
also able to like advise on marketing. So I have a very like multi-hat approach to
Yeah.
this whole thing.
And I think that's one of the, being a fellow communications major, I think that's one of the best things about a communications degree is that it's
Yeah.
so incredibly versatile. You could do so many
Mm-hmm.
things with it. Like you went that way with yours, and I am in marketing and advertising with mine,
Yes.
and two completely different sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and it's not to say that I'm not into marketing and advertising. I
Hmm.
definitely am.
Hmm.
I'm also just still learning and trying to like up my skills. But if I
Yeah.
can get into that industry, like that's cool too, right? Or
Hmm.
even like there's so many like communications firms that I'm discovering that are B Corps and that are all about social change
Yeah.
while still doing advertising and marketing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's 110% my jam because I'm all about A, social change, B, communications. So I've been finding all these really like cool places to work, and I've just been applying and applying and applying. So,
Yeah, that's like the worst part about graduating is like now you actually have to find a job. Ugh,
what is this? What is this job business? No, yeah. And
I
I,
didn't
of
sign
course,
up for this.
yeah, no, I was just like, what? Like, and it's tricky, right? Because
Hmm.
my degree was so theory based, and
Yeah,
what people are looking for is such practical experience. So
yeah,
I'm in the process of trying to bridge that gap,
yeah.
or find the job that will give me that experience.
Hmm.
um but of course, because I'm an ambitious person, I guess I decided to launch my own business at the same time, so I'm somehow afloat.
Whatever works, right?
Whatever works, right? But yeah, they all kind of do the same thing but in different
Hmm.
ways, which is
Yes,
really neat.
yes. There are so many different ways that people communicate now,
Yes,
especially
yeah.
now with
Hmm.
the internet and everything, that there are so many different ways you can use a communications degree. And I'm just
100%.
like super excited because I get to talk about communications. And like I'm very much into like the visual design sort of
Ooh,
aspect of it all,
nice, nice.
and you're much more into like written and verbal communication and community
Hmm.
relations, which is
Hmm.
which is very, very cool. Not something that I would be super great at, but super cool.
And we're both geeky streamers, so I mean,
Yes,
hey.
we are. And one day when you move out, you can be a non-closet geek.
Yep, that's the plan. So
All right. So, starting to wind down a little bit. Do
Mhm.
you have any future projects that you're able to talk about right now, or are they all kind of hush hush?
Not too many things kind of on the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
The Like I said, maybe some Vampire the Masquerade stuff happening in the near future,
Yeah.
with Welcome to the Party. Beyond that, I'm mostly focusing on bringing Vibrant Mizzle Victorious back. We took a little bit of a hiatus. I've been trying to kind of build up a bunch of community members as supports for the show so that I'm
Okay.
not just this one person running the entire thing, because it can get a little overwhelming.
Oh,
So
I'm sure.
I've got some wonderful people that are kind of helping me to really like to strengthen the kind of foundations that build up the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so Byron Meslick Choice is coming back on Saturdays. We've got a one shot with Swords Fall that's going to be happening in the
Ooh,
very near future. In the very
very
near future,
exciting.
yeah, yeah, we're very very blessed to be working with Brandon and Swords Fall. Um, you can kind of hear more about my consulting on my Twitter. If I ever decide to do webinars, you can hear about that. Or if you're local, you can come and check out my workshops. I think that's kind of about it.
Hey, that's about it. She says after listing off like a million things.
Whoops.
Oh yeah, that's. I think that's all I do. Not much. Nothing crazy.
Nothing. Yeah, look, I'm honestly one of those people where I will be very ambitious and take on a bunch of projects. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it works out, sometimes I get in over my head. But so far I'm afloat. So I'm it's terrible. I am definitely one of those people, I fully admit.
Well, really, really, last question that I have for you is where can people find you? Are you going to any conventions this year? Where can people find you on social media to find out more?
Yeah, I would love to attend Gen Con. I'm a bit 50-50 on it at the moment, so
Mm-hmm.
definitely check out my Twitter if you want to know if I'm going or not. If I can't do that, then maybe PAX Youth. Those are kind of the two that I'm kind of looking at the
Yeah.
moment. Beyond that, you can find me on Twitter, at the Leona Maple. And you can also find me in the Welcome to the Party Discord. So check out Welcome Party RPG on Twitter and on Twitch. I'm on their Friday night D&D game. And at the moment, we're playing Sons of the Apocalypse, Princes of the Apocalypse, Princes of the Apocalypse. So you can find me on Friday nights there and in the Discord and running Vibrant Visible Victorious, which is coming back on Saturday nights. That's everything.
Is that coming back this Saturday night, or is it coming back? Does it have a start
one
date?
of one of these Saturday nights.
One of the coming Saturday
One of the
nights.
coming Saturday nights. I know for certain on the 21st,
Okay.
since that's the Swordsfall one shot. Beyond that, it's we're a work in progress. But like I
Okay.
said, follow me on Twitter. I make a lot of noise about stuff when stuff is happening, so you will know. You will know.
Good to know. All right. Well, that's all that I have. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked you about?
uh no,
Okay.
I don't know. I just had a lot of fun, and thank you for letting me kind of ramble to you.
No, thank you so much for being here and talking about all the super awesome stuff you do. I very much enjoyed having you here and getting
Thank
to
you.
chat,
Thank you.
especially getting to chat about being a communications major.
Right? The best part.
All right. And do I have any announcements? I don't think I have any announcements besides like we've got new shows on the channel, so check out all of our new shows on the channel. We have a Lancer game on Sundays now. If you like mechs, go check that out. We have Blue Rose on Thursdays, actually directly after this is airing. So if you stick around, that starts at 9 EST. It's gonna be great. It's a romantic age setting, and it's going really well. So check that out. Check out our regular persistent campaigns, Dead Skies by Night, Steam's Bellagora's Bells, all that fun stuff, and One Shot Tuesdays. So yeah, with that, we can say good night. Bye bye.